have ever seen on anybody's face. What I do, I've no idea. I always think I'm smiling beautifully, but on that camera, it can be quite terrible. I live in Maidenhead. I've taught for the WEA for a very long time. I suppose a 20-mile radius is what I prefer, and I like teaching in the daytime. My qualifications are two-pronged. I am both interested in history of art, and I have qualifications in that and in literature. So I have degrees in both literature and in history of art. I thought I would run through all the things which, some of them I have done quite extensively, but they may be new to other groups here today, other branches. The rise of modernism. Modernism took an awfully long time to rise. So we go all the way from Manet to Mondrian over 20 weeks. So the first one, Manet to Matisse, takes 10 weeks. Matisse to Mondrian takes 10 weeks. And you know, you only just get them in because there's an awful lot to be said. My approach is looking at the paintings. Certainly one does have to see the context in which they were painted, but I'm not into doing the history, the life history of the painters. We are concerned with the actual painting. And you know, so if there is a possibility for going up to the galleries, then all the better. Sometimes that is possible. Painting and poetry of the First World War follows on quite nicely from that, because with Mondrian you get to that point in the First World War when painters are beginning to leave Europe. And painting and poetry in the First World War is a 10-week course, and I alternate the painting and the poetry. Now the painting is avant-garde painting, almost 100%. Not looking at the more ordinary painters, but at the avant-garde painters, which people don't usually know about. Many of them are German, but I cover as many nationalities as possible. You've got Norwegians and Czechoslovakians and all sorts of painters there that perhaps you've not heard of. And the poetry, we include quite a lot of the women poets, again, that are not read much. Visiting London galleries, I've done a couple of times with Windsor, and that usually goes down, well, it's 5 weeks, and the problem with it, of course, is numbers. One needs to restrict the number to between 10 and 15. But it's great fun, and really it is the only way to study art at all, is to go and actually look at the pictures, isn't it? So that's great fun. We visited various galleries. We've been to the National, Tate Britain, Tate Modern. I usually get, as the courtauld and the British Tate Britain, the prints and drawings rooms very kindly will take paintings out for us, and this is wonderful. A more recently devised course comes out of a dissertation I did for an Oxford course, advanced course in history of art. And because there was an element of architecture in the course, which I found enormously interesting, I decided to have a look at how buildings were used by artists. And the F.L. Griggs was an engraver, the late 19th century, and of course his interest was almost entirely on buildings. John Piper, as you know, recorded the paintings of the war, and Rachel Whiteread was very concerned with buildings. So what one is looking at there is, I've called it art, architecture and memory. It was clearly all buildings eventually hold the memory of the nation, really. That's why we have the National Trust, I guess. That one ends with a visit to the Ashmolean, because the Ashmolean has a huge collection, perhaps the only collection, of the engravings of F.L. Griggs, and also some very interesting work by Rachel Whiteread and some Pipers. Now, exotic influences on modern art is a nice way of getting into modern art. And when I say modern, I don't mean contemporary. I mean the modern art that everybody can accept. Your Impressionists, Post-Impressionists, and so on.